Welcome to Game Scheibe, where we talk about all kind of things that are all kind of stupid crap that is wrong with the gaming industry. So, what's wrong with the gaming industry today?
Stadia.
Stadia. Okay, so great, my favorite subject. So, let's talk about Stadia.
Yes. This discussion came about because we just saw an article where they said that Google is going to put a couple of games into Stadia. Even still, even when it's totally absent of gamers. I don't know how many users it has right now or subscribers.
Yeah.
But still, they are trying. Google is trying, and
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So the news was, if I recall correctly, it was so the Stadia Pro, which is like the paid version of Stadia, has 50 games now. And if I understood correctly, the way that Stadia works is that first of all, you don't own games and you don't have to install anything on your computer. Well, maybe you have to install Stadia, but you don't have to install the games. But instead, the games are already installed on Google servers all around, and it just streams the gameplay to your computer while you're playing and shows that. So the difference between like the free sort of free version of Stadia and the Pro version is that the Pro version apparently it gets some games every now and then, and you can sort of just add them to your library. And so apparently now that has like 50 games. I didn't actually check what those games are.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah. But yeah.
So we're very interested because I think the consensus among gamers right now is that Stadia is dead. It's already dead, even though Google is trying to keep it alive. And what we thought we could be discussing right now was that when will Google kill Stadia?
Yeah.
Because it has a long list of features, programs, anything that they've initiated over the years, and then they've killed them at some point in time.
Yeah.
Because various reasons, mostly because they didn't bring any significant money or joy to the shareholders.
Yeah, stuff like Google Plus, I guess. I don't know if Google Plus is like the most notorious example or not, but it was kind of a big deal because it was supposed to be like Google's Facebook or Google's Twitter or whatever, and it got shuttered down. And like it, yeah. So I mean, there are these sites that show that Google has a lot of projects that they've tried over the years, and at some point they just shut them down. And of course, on one hand, it means that sure they've tried a lot of things, and it's not just that they went and killed everything. It's that they've tried a lot of things, but like in my case and in the case of Stadia, it feels that they're not pushing it enough. It's what it feels like to me. That it.
Well, they did have a giant stadium and direct kind of thing when they were going to launch it.
Yeah.
They had celebrities and everyone to showcase what Stadia is going to be all about.
Yeah.
And that was big, and I thought they would carry on with that hype train, not into the launch, but after the launch as well. And they've been very quiet, at least all the gaming news have been very quiet about. You could think that they'd push it everywhere from everything. Yes, okay, they had that very annoying ad that probably ran on YouTube some years ago when Stadia was very new.
I don't even remember that, but
Yeah, I only know about it because it was in some, was it Game Awards or some E3 thingy,
okay.
and I saw the YouTuber Fraser bash it to hell and back because it wasn't very nice, and it was lying a lot. That advertisement, it promised a lot of things like seamless streaming and 4K and 60 frames per second, which all have been lies. And I don't know what's the case right now, but at the time it was total lies. That ad video thingy.
Okay. So yeah, it seems that in the beginning they went and they pushed Stadia pretty bigly, but since then I think, if I remember correctly, they've shuttered down all the first-party development for the games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they're basically right now just hoping. This is kind of like we really like Nintendo and stuff, but the one problem I've always felt in Nintendo as well is that they make their own machine and then they just hope that everybody else is going to make games for it. And sometimes that just doesn't work, especially since Nintendo likes putting their own, I wouldn't know if gimmick is the right word, but their own spin on all of their hardware. They don't just make it more powerful than the previous one, they always add something.
Some gadget thingy in the machine.
Yeah.
To sell it to the gadget enthusiasts.
I already remember thinking that was a problem with the Nintendo DS, although DS was extremely popular, but even there, people were, the developers were always thinking, it has this second screen, so I have to utilize it some way. I can't just make a game without utilizing it in some way. So it seems the same way with Google and Stadia at this point, that they're just hoping that other people are making games for it instead of making them themselves. And the same thing that if you look at Microsoft and you look at Xbox, they have been before Xbox existed, Microsoft was very heavily pushing PC gaming. They were, in fact, the whole reason why this thing called DirectX exists is because Microsoft wanted to make an API that basically makes developing games for PCs a lot easier. And then suddenly Sony came into the business, and they were sort of trying to, I think Sega and Nintendo weren't as much of a problem for PC because PCs were this this whole encompassing multimedia device. You could listen to CDs and watch videos on your PC and so on. But then Sony came and they made the PlayStation, and suddenly that was the multimedia device to go and the gaming device to go. And I remember reading this article where some former Microsoft developers mentioned that they were, I don't remember if it was years or months or whatever, they were into the development of the Xbox, and it was not going well. It was going really poorly, and they were just about to shut down the whole project, and they were in a meeting with Bill Gates and a couple of other important people there, and they were about to shut down the whole Xbox, not go through with it. And then somebody in the room just mentioned that, okay, so what do we do about PlayStation? And there was a moment of silence, and after a while Bill Gates just said, you have all the time, you have all the money, make this project work. So that's how big of a deal Sony and PlayStation was for Microsoft back then. And that's why Microsoft has been pushing and putting the marketing behind Xbox so that it has been going up, and even after the sort of fiasco that was Xbox One, especially in the start, where they were really pushing Kinect to go with the system, they've even recovered from that. Although for a while it seemed like in E3s and stuff like that, you could see that they were also pushing that, you know, these games are coming not just to Xbox but also to PC. So it sort of seemed like maybe they were about to exit the Xbox or the console business altogether, but they didn't. They've been pushing Xbox, and they're still pushing Xbox, and now they're even bought, you know, Activision Blizzard, and they bought Bethesda. They bought a lot of other big studios even before that. So why isn't Google doing the same thing with Stadia? It seems like, you know, they do have all the money and they do have all the resources to like really push this thing, but they don't. So I don't know.
Yeah, Google and their Stadia, they're kind of in the same position. Well, Xbox had 2 iterations before Xbox One, which was a disaster at first, and then they somehow broke through quite well. They never competed with PlayStation 4, but they actually got some kind of fan base still. But Stadia is completely new platform from Google trying to break into the gaming market, so they're in a little bit different position compared to Xbox One, but they have same kind of disaster at hand. They have a product that nobody wants, and they have competition that everybody wants. Xbox has a Game Pass. Why would you buy Stadia when you have a PC already and you can get the Game Pass for your PC? And Stadia requires... Well, there were some forms of Stadia that where you could just install the software on there, but some things, was it on TVs, you had to get the Google Chrome cast or something. There was some kind of starter kit thing they had.
Oh yeah.
You had to pay quite a lot to get the best version, and
it came with a controller and stuff like that. Yeah, but I don't actually remember the details about.
So they were kind of selling kind of a console to people, as well as a subscription-based model with that console, whatever it was. So they were trying to take money in 2 steps, at the start and then to the future with the subscriptions. And that was a very big sticking point for many people, especially I think the Game Pass was already at some stage at that time. People were talking about that, why Stadia, because when we have a Game Pass already. So it all seems like they are very blind to their competition. Almost I think they are trying to be like Nintendo, that competition doesn't exist for Google, when their product is, everyone sees that it has a very viable competition.
Yeah, and the big thing with Nintendo is that obviously Nintendo has, for as long as I can remember, they've had this integrated hardware and software like mentality with that. They make their own hardware and then they make their own software for it. And that's the great thing, because they make the hardware for their own software, then they can like dedicate that software for it, and it can be amazing software. That's why Nintendo has all these amazing games on their lineup. But Google doesn't have that, and especially now, since they've closed all their first party studios, then
well, all these studio closings and media silence, they refer to the fact that Google is starting to give up, or they've been giving up for a long time, but they're still giving out games. You could come up with a best case scenario that Google really took all the feedback, they took everything they could take from this disaster that is the Stadia 1.0, and maybe they are coming up with 2.0. That's the best case scenario I can think about.
Yeah.
Maybe they are trying to keep it alive a little bit, just to get the data in about gamers, what they want to play and how their infrastructure is working. Is it working? Maybe they are going for 2.0. Would that be possible?
Yeah, haven't actually thought about that, but I don't know. It's just well, first of all, like if we think back on, I think, well, I don't remember a lot of these projects that Google has shuttered down, but like if you think of, well, I don't remember like any specific cases where they would have like shut down a project and then revived it.
But they haven't shut down Stadia.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So there is that possibility. But like, because right now it does feel like they're just waiting for it to die and just sort of
taking all the money they can from.
Yeah, because I mean it's always a bit strange. Like it was the same thing with Google Plus. They didn't just immediately shut it down that okay, this isn't working. They were waiting for several years before they actually did that. So I don't really know what's the like thought process behind that. Are they waiting for some kind of miracle to happen, or like are they gathering data for possibly for future projects? I don't know. But yeah, that seems like that's the direction they're going for. That they're just, you know, waiting for it to die out, and at some point they're going to close it. That's what it seems like right now. But really, as I said, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Why are they doing it? Why are they just shutting it down immediately?
Yeah. In business, you always have to cut the costs wherever you can. And yeah, they really have cut the costs in Stadia. They haven't marketed it anymore. They don't really push it anywhere. No YouTuber has been paid to play it anymore. At least I haven't heard anything about it. So it seems like they are really cutting the costs, like I said. And now they are just keeping it alive with some kind of team and taking in everything they can, including the money from the people who still want to subscribe to that model.
Yeah.
And the data, because Google is big on data. They are data company, and everything they do is about getting that data and selling everything they can with the data, or selling the advertisement spots for everyone else to get access to that data to target the audience.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. So it's basically in maintenance mode right now. It's like, I don't know about English, but in Finnish we have this proverb about milking the cow. Maybe it's in English as well.
Yeah.
So at some point you just cut down all the costs and just milk what you have for as long as you can.
Yeah, but the question in the beginning was, when will Google kill Stadia? And well, we can tell you the exact date, because it can be anywhere from next month to 5 years from now. depending on how much benefits they can reap from that service at the time. Maybe 5 years is what we've been seeing Stadia for, and then they shut it down, and everyone is, what? Stadia was still alive?
Yeah.
Or maybe it will be next month, and everyone will say, good riddance, we didn't want you anymore. Yeah.
I think considering Google's past, I'd like to imagine that it's going to stay alive at least for a couple of years. Because even with the other services, they've always had like this, I don't remember how much it was for Google Plus or any of the other services, something like Picasa or stuff like that, but I think it was probably at least half a year, if not a whole year. So there's going to have to be this 1 year period where they warn their customers that, okay, we're going to be shutting this down, and everything in there is going to be it's going to disappear. I mean, of course, there's probably not going to be, like with Google Plus and with Picasa, there you have your like personal information there, and you have all sort of content that you've created there. But with Stadia, there's no, well, actually, I don't know, can you make your own games? Probably not for Stadia, but or at least not very easily. But there's probably not anything you need to sort of take out from there. But still, I think there needs to be this warning period, where they give you the heads up that, hey, we're closing this. So that's why I don't think it's going to be a year. I don't think it's going to be within a year. It's going to be probably a year after they announce it, so at least a couple of years.
Yeah, one question that popped to mind was, why aren't they doing the Microsoft's strategy, or the thing you said earlier that Xbox was almost cancelled, and then there was someone saying, do everything you can to make it work. So
Bill Gates himself.
Yeah. So Google doesn't have that guy or the person who is saying that we are going to make this happen, because gaming industry is very big. It's getting larger by the day, and there's always some new studios making new games and breakthroughs, and now there are a lot of acquisitions happening left and right. And it would be wise, or of course the Google people thought it would be wise to try get into the market. So why aren't they pushing even harder? Because of the industry getting larger, and everyone is going to get at least a little slice of that pie. And with a big company like Google, they could do that, but why they don't have the winning power to push it through?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd really like to know the reason, like, why they're not doing it. And it's the same thing with Google Plus, because I think they had the marketing power to push that and crush Twitter and crush Facebook and everything, but they didn't for whatever reason. So I think Stadia's case, first of all, like, the reason why Microsoft pushed so hard was because of Sony. They were so afraid of Sony and PlayStation that they had to do it. In Stadia's case, Google doesn't seem to have that fear. Like, I don't, like, who would even be like a direct competitor to Google?
But I don't really understand why Sony was a big threat to Microsoft back in the day. Why was Microsoft afraid of Sony? Because Microsoft had been like building PCs as this like big combination of multimedia device and gaming. Yeah, that was the reason. So so it seems like Google was
in Google's case, they were just, Stadia just seems like just another project.
Side project even.
Yeah. Like all the other hundreds of projects that they've had thus far. With almost everything, so it doesn't seem like they had any sort of like, well, okay, it was like a fresh new take. Okay, there's the Nvidia Shield and some other like competitors who are sort of doing the same thing. But I guess Google, they had the infrastructure to actually take that concept of, streaming games into your device and like do it really well. And despite that, it seems like it wasn't the massive hit that they were hoping it would be. And I guess they were just hoping that it would be that massive hit by itself, so that they wouldn't have to market it by themselves. I guess you could even say that it's just not like the Google way to overpower something with marketing or something like that.
Yeah. Even though they're a very big company, they're one of the 5 big in the trading market right now. Also, they're part of the 5 big tech companies in the USA. And still they seem to be sticking with the innovative tech company identity at some capacity. They are trying to find the next big thing. Maybe they are even right about doing it, because in business you are allowed to fail. It's very strange to be an individual and be always been taught that failing is very bad. If you fail, you are laughed at, or you're not taken seriously. Oh, that guy failed. They failed to start their little barbering company, and now they're bankrupt. But when you are a business and you have money to burn, it is very worthwhile to try new things and fail a lot. And the Google graveyard is testament of Google's willingness to always try something new, and maybe even keep it alive for a few years, even though it might be even net negative to them. But they at least try, and they come up with something new, and Stadia was something new, even though they already had a competition in form of Game Pass and Nvidia's
Shield
yes. thing. So we like to laugh at Google a lot about their failed projects, but think about how much world they are conquering right now. They have all our data, and we are giving it willingly to them. And it's in exchange for the free stuff like Gmail and YouTube videos, and a lot of the internet is built on Google's innovations in a way. We have a cloud, or the equivalent of home office, or Microsoft's Office 365, that is a cloud-based office platform.
Google Drive and everything that's in it.
And everyone gets it for free, and we are giving the data to them in exchange. So that said, Google is just being Google with Stadia right now. There is nothing odd.
Yeah, and actually now that you mention it, now that you put it that way, it seems like Stadia 2.0 is actually, like, it seems like a pretty possible thing, but actually, like, in the way that they're going to at some point probably just shut down Stadia, but it was a project, it was something they attempted, and they're going to kill it eventually. But maybe someday they'll try something new, and they'll have another project, and it's gaming related, and they're going to bring that up, and maybe that will broke out. We don't know.
Metaverse is very big right now. Maybe they have something in their sleeve. Maybe Stadia will bring some, or the things they learned from Stadia will be brought into Metaverse, whatever it will be or will never be. But they've learned their lessons and they will carry them to the next project, whatever it will be. And that's the Google way. Always try new things. And sometimes they are ahead of the curve, way ahead of the curve, and then they will get lots of money. And sometimes they are way behind, but then they will cut the costs and get it fail and carry on, getting the money they get from the projects that have succeeded. Google is big because they have the successful projects that keep bringing them money all the time right now and to the future. They will always get the money, or they have these cows to milk right now, and they are in very good position to always try something new.
Personally, like whatever Google is going to do next, or whatever way they're going to go with their like gaming projects, like my big problem with Stadia was that there's like Steam is already pretty bad with like the ownership of your games. Like if you buy a game on Steam, you don't really buy a game. You basically just rent a license to like play the game for as long as your account exists. But you're not really actually getting more than basically renting that license to play the game. And like Stadia was even a step further, that, well, in the same way right now you don't even have like the physical files of the game or anything. So that's not really a direction that I want games to go, or basically anything, because it's taking ownership away from you. You're not really owning anything. And I guess like people today are much more willing to take that, because if you look at services like Netflix and Amazon Prime and everything, like it seems to be fine with people that, you know, it's okay if I don't own this movie that I paid money for. I'm just, you know, paying to view it once or twice, and that's fine enough for people.
Okay, I don't know. Because we follow the game industry a lot, and people who are involved with it, and YouTubers and such, and they are always complaining about the games going fully digital. But has there been some same kind of complaints about movies or TV series? Maybe because it's naturally been always in the TV. Back in the day,
and
the show came into the satellite disk or your antenna, and it came to your TV, and you saw the picture. You could always tape it, and that's your
your copy.
Yeah, that's your copy of the show.
Yeah,
maybe that's more natural transition from show coming to your TV without any discs to go in it go into the Netflix dashboard, and you can watch it there. And yeah.
And the same thing with theaters, because before all this television business, the way you used to watch movies was going to the theaters, so it was natural that you only paid to view it once. Whereas with games, it's for the longest time. I mean, of course, arcade is different. You'd go to the arcade and you play for, you know, a certain amount of lives to try the game out. But like home consoles have always been about owning the actual game, and it you know, to me it just feels like one big part of like the success of Nintendo Switch is that it's sort of brought back the cartridges and sort of brought back the physical thing. I'm not sure if that's really correct or not, but it feels like that's one part of the reason why Switch has been so successful. And it also feels like specifically about cartridges. There's something about cartridges that people prefer owning them to, owning a CD or a Blu-ray disc.
Yeah, they have this sense of very commodity or something.
Yeah.
You always had these discs, you could go to any store and buy a bunch of them and burn your stuff into them. They're very not anything special.
They feel like something flimsy and something like that won't last really long. And
yeah, but also one could argue that the Switch cartridge looks like a SD card, so why that isn't the case?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, well, okay, I went way ahead with my thoughts, but the SD card is a medium you can put stuff in it and you can erase it and you put stuff in it. It's kind of a mini computer in a layman's eyes. So maybe, no, it's not very much the same as CD. That's more like you burn it once. They were rewritable discs, but it was somehow more definite. I don't know where I'm going with this thought. It's just
yeah, I think I understand that, but I think it's more about like the physical manifestation of the thing. Like CDs always felt like something that's like not very valuable. It feels like something that's it doesn't have all that much value. I don't know how to like better describe it, but like with any kind of cartridge, it feels like this is worth something. This is like it's hard plastic and it has some, I don't know, heft whatever to it, which makes it feels like it's valuable.
Yeah, it somehow tickles your just the right part of your brain to think it's something special. Because in the NES times, NES and SNES, the Super Nintendo times, it was the console itself was kind of incomplete without the game, and when you put the game, it attaches all the circuits in place, and then you start playing the game. Maybe it's some kind of you're putting a piece of puzzle into the console and it becomes whole. I don't know, this is something I just came to mind because of the old game consoles kind of did that. They didn't work. They had nothing until you put something in it.
And that's a good point, because like one of the former Nintendo presidents, what was his name? I don't remember.
Yamaguchi.
Yeah, Yamaguchi was it?
Yeah.
So the one who was a president back in the NES era, in the 80s, he realized himself that like the NES, it's just a box. It's like an extra hindrance to the person who just wants to play Super Mario Brothers. It's like you want to play Super Mario Brothers, but you also have to buy this expensive stupid thing. And so that's one of the big things, like people don't want the machine, they want the games. And that's also, maybe we can talk about this another time, but an interesting subject in that in the last like 10 or even 20 years, like especially Sony and Microsoft have been pushing their consoles as that one thing that people want, whereas in the beginning it was the whole point with Nintendo was that they were pushing the games, and the console was just something that you wouldn't buy it if you didn't have to, but you had to, because that's the box that allows you to actually play the Super Mario Brothers, which is what you want to do.
Yeah. So coming back to the streaming or the full digital versus physical games, even in the Nintendo first Nintendo console era, or was it SNES? Nintendo had the kind of a live stream version of their games, the Zelda, some kind of antenna. They used the TV signals. So that's a very interesting prospect. If
it was Japan only, but
if gaming history went a different direction, the streaming might have been already very viable in the 90s. It was only in Japan. It wasn't very successful, and that's why they dropped it. I don't know why it wasn't very successful, but if it had been successful, then there might be a alternate history where everything started streaming already in the 90s, and we would be very comfortable with the idea that, or very used to the idea that games you play, they come to your TV the same way, or the TV series came. So if that was the case, then maybe we wouldn't now be whining about games going full digital if we were more used to it in our childhood already.
Yeah. It might have been possible for Nintendo to bring that service as well to the States and Europe, possibly, so other people might have gotten more used to it. But it was Japanese only, and as far as I remember, there wasn't all that many games, so they didn't really double down on the idea. But still, it was an interesting concept.
Yeah, and this brings about the idea, maybe we are just so used to physical games because they started like that. TV series were always something you went to watch in the theater in the first place, and then the TVs came about, and movie theaters were very mad about people getting televisions. Now they sat at home watching the TV, but it was always the streaming. They were always streamed to you, the TV series or the films, and there was never any discussion about things going digital or your TV series going digital. The physical copies were kind of an add-on or something they sold us if you want to own the collection in your library or want to watch it whenever you want. It was kind of an additional revenue for the companies to sell the physical versions after they aired all the digital versions, so to speak, streamed them to us. But in the games case, it's kind of another way around. We are so used to the physical media. We wanted physical because they were always physical. Now they are pushing to the digital side and then the cloud side. And we are being very stubborn about it because we think physical things, how they should be, the video games should be.
And I'm kind of torn about that because, like, on one hand, I do understand and like I'd even prefer like more things in the world to go or to be in a digital format, because the world is already so full of all sort of physical stuff, and we keep feeling it more and more. So there's quite enough like physical products, all sort of t-shirts and everything being made every day. There's way too much. But on the other hand, like, once again coming back to the idea of ownership, I think there would have to be some kind of laws about, like, not just renting games, but if I buy something, like, okay, games used to be very expensive. Like, people today are whining about games costing like $60 or $70, but they used to cost that and maybe even more back in the NES days. So you bought this very lackluster, well, not lackluster, but well,
beat up used game or
or whatever, and and like it would cost like $80 even back then. But the positive thing is that you had it like physically on your hand, so at any point you can just sell it forward, so you can maybe, even if you only get like 1/4 of the price back or something, you'd still get some of your money back, and you do have the ownership. Like nobody can, like Phil Spencer can't just ram down your door and run into your room and grab your Xbox and be like, no, this is mine now, you can't play anymore. Like that's basically the idea. Like if you're buying games on Stadia or you're buying games on Steam, that's sort of like what can happen to you. You can just get banned from Steam and now all your game collection is just gone. But they can't do that with all the like Nintendo cartridges that you own or any other. Like Nintendo can't do that unless you of course bought something digitally. So that's the like big thing about ownership, that you actually have that thing in some form and somebody can't take it away from you, or if they do then it's stealing.
Yeah, the copyright laws and the ownership laws, they are way behind. They were established when things were way more physical. Music industry has it has very long traditions of ownership, and I think they've been pushing the digital very much the same way as the video game industry has been, that they really want people to pay many times over for the same song over and over, tens and hundreds of times.
Indeed.
So we are in kind of a crossroads over here. We have the old-fashioned copyright and ownership laws, and we have businesses who really want to get as much money as possible, and subscription services are very lucrative business because there are a lot of people who forget they have subscriptions running in the background, and they get a lot of money all the time, and it's very, and I can blame businesses going that way because it brings some sort of ease of mind knowing that you have 1,000 subscribers or 10,000 subscribers and there is a steady flow of cash at all times. So I can see why they are pushing it, but there needs to be some kind of we need to look at our laws, same with the loot boxes and gambling, but that's way different topic. We can talk about it later or in some other video.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to the laws and how outdated they are, and how the people who are making the laws, they may be very out of the loop. They look at the world and see that everything is fine. The copyright law or the ownership law or anything that involves owning your stuff in exchange of money or some goods or anything, they are old-fashioned, but the lawmakers may not see it that way, or it's not that urgent. You don't have that you have to do anything about it at the moment, at least.
Yeah, I guess it speaks for something that like if there was like a huge problem, or there would be like millions of people with problems, then probably something would have been done at this point. But there hasn't been like that much outcry about it, so I guess that's why there hasn't been all that much done about it at this point.
And that's why the businesses are doing what they are doing. They are pushing the envelope. They take the 2 steps forward. They try out things and they see if they can get away with it. And if there is an outcry, then they take 1 step back. But not the second step back.
Yeah.
So they've already pushed it somewhere further, and they hope they can do it quickly enough that we get so used to it that we don't anymore think we should change the laws anymore. So this is very interesting times we are living in, and yeah, it could go in any direction from here. But it really, coming back to Stadia, I feel like it was, if it was, let's say, 2 or a couple of years earlier, might have it would have then been successful if it was the first viable service on the market.
Yeah, I don't really know, because I remember that there have been like services like this for, I think, over 10 years already. But of course, the special thing that Google had with Stadia was that you can play on any device, as opposed to these other services where you can just stream those games to your PC.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I don't really know if it would have helped. Like, if we're talking about the timing, like, was it too late to the party? Was it too early to the party?
Somewhere in the middle, they were too early in some aspects, and they were too late, especially on the streaming quality side. Game Pass was already doing way better than Stadia ever was doing it. The 60 frames per second and 4K, the quality was way better than Stadia in Stadia, and that's one of the very crucial tipping points.
So maybe it could have been that they are also sort of marketed it in a wrong way, because like who is sort of the person who'd like to buy like that kind of service? And I think, like, if you already own like a high quality PC gaming, well, a high quality gaming PC, then you probably won't need Stadia. It's, to me, like the ideal target audience would be somebody who's pretty poor, and they don't have like that $2,000 or more to put into that gaming PC, but they still want that experience. So they could just pay that, maybe $5 or $10 a month, and like get something that's way big, or well, runs way better than what they could afford.
I can't really shake off the idea that they were too late and too early at the same time, because we just talked about people being stuck with the wanting the games to be physical, and the businesses wanting to go full digital. And one of the major problems with Stadia was that they wanted you to first of all get the machine, then they wanted you to pay the subscription fee, and then they really wanted you to also buy the games. You paid subscription fee for the privilege to buy the games individually for you.
Yeah.
So they were kind of, I don't know what the thought process with that was. Maybe they were seeing that people are still really wanted to own their games, and they thought they could push this narrative of you buy it or you have to pay some kind of fee and then you buy the games. Kind of good parts of the two different worlds, the owning part and the subscription part, but it was, from the customer side, it was the opposite of taking the best aspects of the two things.
Yeah.
So
because actually I don't think if we even mentioned, during this whole talk that yeah, you also have to buy the games. Even if you pay for the pro version of Stadia, you still have to buy the games. The pro version stuff just means that you get some games like every now and then.
And if they were going the kind of Nintendo way of hoping that they launched this thing and let the people spread it around, then their subscription plus buy the games model was the last thing they should have chosen to go with.
Yeah.
Because that has the opposite effect. Yeah.
Because I mean, at least with the Nvidia Shield, I think with that service you don't have to buy the games again, so to speak. If you already bought something on Steam or something or some other service, then you could play it on the Nvidia Shield. So in Stadia's case, even if you own the game on some other platform, you still have to buy it. So I think it might have actually like worked if they just, the pro version was something that you just get like hundreds of games or something like that. But
yeah, they were. When I think about Stadia, it's very baffling, and according to what we've been talking right now, it's very baffling that maybe there was some group who just liked to work on this thing that became Stadia, and then someone up in the tower thought that maybe we could sell this thing, but nobody in the middle was seeing that what it was going to compete against. No one was trying to see, should we compete with the price or should we compete with the exclusive games? They never chose the killer feature that would sell it. They just went all over the place at the same time with everything they had, including all the payment methods they could get. So it feels like they really never wanted to try really well, other than advertising stuff at first. But everything else there was no person or group or anyone who would really push it to somewhere with a very clear focus what we should be and how we should market it. Yeah. Okay.
There was no true product champion, so to speak.
Yeah. Maybe nobody at Google really wanted it either, and there was just some higher up who just saw that there had been a lot of money going this little project someone somewhere had, and they thought they should get at least what they put into there. Just push it out there and get the money and then run away.
So it's just another Google project. So they just thought, okay, maybe this will work out. Let's try it. And it really didn't, but oh well.
Yeah, up to the next projects. Maybe they'll be successful.
We'll have to see. Okay, wow. I think we talked for quite a while, so
yeah.
Thanks for listening, and if you have any thoughts on yourself, you can just leave them down in the comments or just whatever. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.